Okay, everybody, we have Tucker Jones from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. Tucker, thank you for joining us. I know it's a very busy time for you, and we appreciate your time. I know we don't have a ton of participants tonight, but the good news is that we will post this on our YouTube channel, and we do get a lot of traction from that. So, um, uh, the tonight's Tucker's got uh, a PowerPoint presentation that he'll share with us um, regarding the Columbia River. And Tucker probably has one of the hardest jobs in the department, and not enviable position, but it's certainly good work, and we appreciate what you do. Well, what you do for Oregon does not go unnoticed, so we appreciate that, Tucker.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Tucker Jones. I'm the Ocean Salmon and Columbia River Program Manager, and I thought I would try to do a little bit of maybe share a little bit about the program. Let's see how this goes. I'm hopefully sharing the PowerPoint now. I don't know if folks can see that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then also talk about give a little bit about the an update of sort of fall fisheries, how we go through that sort of planning, and then a little bit of an update on where we're at and how things went. Just thought I would briefly go through what the program looks like, because I don't know how much folks know what the program has. I think maybe they think it's just fisheries, and it's more than that. So let's see if I can actually do this. So my program actually has three sections, right? Everyone here, I think, probably knows about the Columbia River Fisheries Management section. There's also, which is pretty self-explanatory, right? It deals with interjurisdictional fisheries from the mouth up to well, the state line, but all the fisheries that fall within the sort of Oregon, USP Oregon Management Agreement fisheries. It's got the Columbia River Coordination section. That's doing a lot of work that's interfacing with the hydro system, or really anything that's sort of interjurisdictional but not fisheries related. But a lot of hydro work there. And then the ocean salmon section. So all those interjurisdictional salmon fisheries that occur sort of by the Columbia. Not going to talk a lot tonight about the ocean salmon section. I'm going to keep this sort of Columbia River focused. The Columbia River, going to talk next sort of about the Columbia River coordination section. As I said, this section really deals primarily with hydro system issues. The basin is big. It's been really heavily impacted by the hydro system. Hydro system is a major impactor of salmon species throughout the basin, whether it's Upper Columbia, Mid Columbia, Snake Basin. And this sucks up a lot of my time and a lot of my staff's time. You guys, I think, interface a lot with fisheries management staff. I have a lot of staff who work on these hydro issues. But we also, are not just dealing with strictly hydro issues here, right? We're also tasked with dealing with things, something that's sort of reared its head recently that's taken up some of our time is like the Corps' Lower Columbia River maintenance plan for the Federal Navigation Channel. This is something that's just jumped up recently. This is kind of a big deal. They're trying to figure out where they're going to put dredge spoils for the next 20 years. We don't have a lot of time to try to comment on this, but it's kind of a deal. And if folks want to look into it, there's a hyperlink here. The Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, we're also trying to help the department figure out how we're going to comment on this. Another pretty big issue has the potential to impact fish and wildlife resources. And then there's a lot of predation issues that are happening down in the estuary. Cormorants, for instance, on the Astoria-Meekler Bridge. This is a big deal, um, not just for fish, but also for cars and transportation issues. This is a big deal for ODOT. And so we're trying to work with ODOT and WashDOT and Washington Fish and Wildlife here. So this takes up quite a bit of time there. Hydro is a big issue, though. Why do I say that? If we think about what are potential impacts to salmon survival, we think about different things that are impacting, their life cycle survival. Hydro, for Snake River, for instance, wild spring salmon, wild spring chinook, hydro is a huge impact. Really much bigger than a lot of the other sources of mortality on these fish. You look at harvest and hatchery, estuary habitat, much lower than sort of the other sources of mortality on here. This is a sort of a busy slide. I'll be honest with you, this is a busy time of year. I sort of grab from other presentations as I'm working here to put stuff together. But, really the take home here, as salmon are migrating out through the system, if they're interacting with different dams as they move out, every time they interact with a dam, their sort of chances of coming back as an adult go down between 9 and 13%, on average about 10%. So if a Snake River fish, right, from the upper Snake is going out and it has 8 dams between it and the mouth, that's about an 80, and it hits all 8 of them, that's an 80% chance of it's, or 80% reduction chance coming back. So there's a lot of impact going on from the hydro system, and so we're doing a lot of work trying to minimize through increasing spill primarily, but a lot of stuff going on there trying to reduce the impacts of the hydro system. We work with our other state and tribal co-managers. We're doing a lot of work. We've been in court for a long time. We've recently come out of court. We're doing a lot of stuff because fewer dam encounters equals higher ocean and estuary survival. The hydro system also impacts survival, right? Pre-hydro system, right? If you look here, you can see, before we constructed the hydro system, a juvenile salmon coming out of the Snake River took about 2 days to get from the upper Snake down to the estuary. By the time we completed the hydro system, through that time, that went up to about 19 days. So this water transit time is also a big factor in survival. So again, we're trying to do these things through spill and other things to reduce their transit time. I don't know if people know this, but salmon, sorry, I try to get my hand up into the camera view there. Juvenile salmon, when they migrate down the system, are actually like a passive particle. Most of them are actually swimming head up into the current. They're not swimming downstream. So they rely on the flow of the system to move them down. And so we're really working hard with our partners to maximize their survival out, minimize their impacts with the hydro system, and do what we can to increase their overall survival through the system.
Tucker, I have a real quick question on out-migrating smolts. When we started seeing more spill on the dams, what was the rate? Did you see a market return on, or survival rate on juvenile salmon going out and returning? You mentioned spill, so I was just curious.
Yeah, we did see an increase in survival. We're not seeing enough, right? Long term, we can get increases of rates, or we do see an increase in survival rates for those fish. We need to see, on average, right, at least 2% for replacement of a small to adult return rate, right? That SAR rate, we need to get at least 2% on average. Ideally, we're seeing between 2 and 6 with an average of 4 to see good population growth. Anything below 1% is going to be sort of generational declines. And unfortunately, for a lot of those Snake River populations, lot of times we're hovering around, less than 2, and sometimes in that 1% rate. We do know that, spill gives us our best chance right now in the current system to have better rates. But that's the best we can do in the current system. We figured out that spill sort of works in the current system really through an accident. This sort of high flows, nature's bounty, in sort of 2001 and those flood years when they had too much water uh, and they had a lot of uncontrolled spill. And then we sort of started to see returns come back from those years, or not 2001, 96, 97, and then the return years in '01. So nature's bounty sort of like gave us the hints that that skipping the powerhouse route was really the way to go. And now, now we're trying to maximize that. So we get there, we just don't get enough, right? And we know that really, ultimately, for those snake river populations, probably we're going to need to see a restored lower snake. And we've done a lot, and as much as we could through maximizing spill and reducing powerhouse encounters, but especially in the face of climate change, we're really, really kind of maxed out what we can through the existing system. The Snake River populations they're gonna struggle, especially in the face of climate change. Which is why, after a long time in court, Oregon and the Nez Perce and the other plaintiffs came out of court. We worked with the other 6 sovereigns, so that's Washington, Oregon, and the 4 lower River Treaty Tribes. We signed a long-term stay agreement with the federal government to work with the Biden and Harris administration to see if we can get to a political solution that would sort of reach towards those big fixes. We signed that last December, was formalized. We have the Columbia Basin Restoration Initiative, which is the 6 sovereign sort of roadmap towards basin-wide recovery, and then the RCBA is the Resilient Columbia Basin Agreement, and that is the U.S. government's response, the commitments towards the CBRI. And this takes up a large chunk of my time and a lot of my staff's time as we work towards trying to achieve these goals out of court through congressional and political actions, trying to make the pie bigger, really, right? This is about making sure that treaty and non-treaty fisheries are there, right? These are huge economic, ecological, cultural drivers for both non-treaty and treaty fisheries. They're really important for us all, and they're ecologically important as well. So, and I think it's important to know that this takes up a ton of time. It really does. But it's good because it's about making the pie bigger so that we have, more opportunities. But where we're at right now is not great, right? Fisheries management is complex. We have a lot of, 13 endangered stocks in the basin. If we're thinking about fall management, there's a lot of these stocks in here that are listed and we have to deal with, right? Snake River Fall Chinook, Lower Columbia River Chinook, chum, coho, steelhead. I mean, these are all in the mix when we're talking about fall fisheries. And that's where we're going to sort of transition away from where we were and into Columbia River fisheries management. Like I said, Columbia River management, fall fisheries are complex. Fisheries management deals with all of our fisheries over the course of the year. So whether we're talking about spring fisheries, sport fisheries, commercial fisheries, working with our state, tribal, federal co-managers, they're working on all these issues. For fall fisheries, we have multiple Chinook stocks, multiple ESA listed stocks, multiple ESA species, multiple fisheries, right, that have to be planned together. We have ocean fisheries, multiple river fisheries. We have treaty fisheries, non-treaty fisheries, etc., to have to plan and work together and fit together in a giant jigsaw. And how we do these fisheries, right? Each year starts, really with a forecast, multiple forecasts, right? We have to have a Chinook forecast, we have to have a coho forecast, we have to have steelhead forecasts, and then we have a lengthy planning and public input process. These start generally in February for our forecasting efforts, and then the planning and public input process starts in March. Staff generally present some potential options based on run size, and then they ask for feedback from the public. They take that feedback into final modeling exercises at the PFMC meetings at Pacific Fishery Management Council. And then that preseason process gets finalized at the April PFMC meeting, which next year, that meeting will be at Vancouver, Washington, if folks are interested. So what do those potential options look like? Well, buoy 10 has changed over the years, right? What once was really a coho directed fishery, I don't know if folks remember that, buoy 10 used to be a coho directed fishery, is now really a full-blown Chinook centered, really kind of crazy powerhouse that can just suck up impacts like crazy. But it's not the only, fall fishery, right? We have the buoy 10 fishery, we have what used to be Tongue Point to Warrior Rock, but we've moved that boundary up to West Puget Island, to Warrior Rock to Bonneville, and we have the fishery upstream of Bonneville Dam. And then into the options, right? There are 3 constraining stocks of Chinook, which can vary by year. There's also coho, which almost is never constraining, but this year actually was a
Am I the only one that lost Tucker?
I lost him too.
Oh, I think he's gone. Or
Yeah.
he froze up.
Okay, looks like I sent him a direct message.
Hey, it looks like I'm back.
Okay,
I
perfect.
don't know what happened there.
All right.
Okay.
There you are.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, good. We lost your screen though.
Good thing,
right.
Tucker.
All right. Well, let's. All right. Yeah, my internet's acting a little wonky tonight. I don't know. I haven't had any issues lately, but sorry about that, guys.
You're good.
So, sorry. Where did I drop you guys at? It seemed like it was fairly instantaneous, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, if you maybe start at the fall recreational fishery objectives.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah. So we. Sorry, there are 3 constraining stocks, Sometimes they vary by year. Sometimes they vary within year. Now we have official fall. Oregon, right, has official fall recreational fishery objectives in rule, right? Um, they're like OAR 635, 500, 6760. If you want to look them up, I didn't put that in there, but they're there. They are difficult, bordering on impossible to meet if you're trying to meet them all together in the same year. I mean, we could meet them, we could probably meet one or the other if you're doing them separately, but if you're trying to get them all, they're hard to do. And then, we also have, we've had some changing public interests over time, at least for now, in what folks are what we're hearing from folks. Really, especially more recently, after the emergency closures of 2022, we conducted a survey of fall fishery anglers. We had more than 7,500 anglers respond to that. More than 95% of those people who responded were annual license holders, and about 2% of those were guide or charter license holders of those people who responded. And they, and I guess I'm going to give you a little bit of the results of that. I don't know if folks have looked into that survey at all. Let's see if I can get back to advancing my slides. We had pretty broad representation on where folks fished in that survey. Lots of folks fishing down at Buoy 10, a decent number in that Middle River, fairly good chunk in the Warrior Rock to Bonneville area, and then if you look in sort of a combined, this is all zones. You can't see my mouse doing this. I don't know if you can see my mouse here. The yellow is Bonneville, the light blue here is the Dalles, and the green is John Day, and that's about 15%, I think, 14%. So a decent chunk in Zone 6. So fairly good geographic representation of where people were fishing to. And what we saw and what heard from them is that really, consistency, quality of, catch opportunity, season length, and predictability is what people really wanted to hear, or what we heard from people. People wanted to see predictability, stability, maximum season length, things, I guess they're not super shocking, but, and really even, in some of those things that didn't fully expect to hear, even when it came to like, Buoy 10, a longer season with mark selective regulations or a shorter season where any Chinook could be retained. And we started to see a shift there where people were, willing to have, it wasn't a huge majority, but if you'd asked me what I thought the respondents were going to be here, I would have thought that people wanted to have, people wanted to catch any Chinook. But as it turns out, even amongst a pretty large respondent size, there's a decent chunk of people who were willing to have those mark select regulations in a longer stable season rather than just their any Chinook season. So we've taken those survey results to heart the last couple of years and really tried to provide that stability. 2023 was a full mark select season at Buoy 10. And 2024 we had just the Labor Day weekend as non-mark select, and that's where we're at, right? Buoy 10 was mark select through August 29, and the non-mark select through September 4. West Puget Island through Warrior Rock was is scheduled to be open through tomorrow with a mark select week the last week to get that extra days open. And this goes back to the longer seasons, right? One of the options we put forth in that planning process was, uh, you know, to keep it non-mark select, but only open through last Friday, or we could have a slightly longer season and a mark select period. And what we heard from most of our public who provided responses was that they would prefer a longer season with a mark select option. This actually comes closer to what our fall fishery objective is for this season, which is supposed to be open through through September, I think 7th, with a week of mark select fishing, September 8th through the 14th. And then Warrior Rock was supposed to be open through Bonneville Dam, open through September 15th. Bonneville Dam to the Oregon-Washington state line, or I guess if you believe there's anything worthwhile north of the Oregon-Washington, north of the Columbia River, Highway 395, but I don't know about that. That's also open through September 15th. Though we did have a hearing today, and those fisheries were extended to September 22nd. So, but I finished my presentation prior to that hearing and did not have time to update it after the hearing. So, yeah. So, Buoy 10 did meet its preseason date objectives, right? We don't, it did not catch as many Chinook as anticipated preseason, for a variety of reasons. The estuary can, I think, and often does, a thermal block that sets up in it, which can really affect catch rates. So it really had a potential to, and we have to plan our fisheries management structure around that. It did not have a thermal block set up in it at all this year, so it fished quite a bit differently. But we don't manage fall fisheries in isolation, and we don't manage them generally based on quotas. The fleet is mobile, and fisheries management has to be adaptive and responsive to what's happening on the river in real time. If we don't, then bad things. Well, even when we do, bad things can still happen, and we have to do emergency closures. We have impacts and other, available, and we're managing fisheries, essentially, sprinting and sliding towards the edge of a cliff with the goal of trying to get as close to the edge as possible without going off the edge. And it's a difficult proposition because with ESA and our catch balancing in the U.S. Feed Management Oregon, you're really not allowed to go off the edge. So, but those impacts really, and our fisheries it's an engagement and conservation opportunity with everyone. And so we want to optimize the use of those for everyone. And so we're really trying to do everything we can to optimize the use of those, because if we're not, then we're missing our conservation opportunity through our engagement with our public. So it's definitely a balancing act. Other fisheries have been catching Chinook. So, managing those fisheries in concert is definitely the way to go. And the 2024 run has really been behaving, from my standpoint, differently. It's got one of the, if not the earliest peak I'm aware of, 29,000 fish over on like August 20th or so. It just, and then it's got a real broad shoulder. Fall Chinook run timings are typically really compressed. They don't behave like this run. So it's kind of got me a little weirded out, I'll be honest with you. But TAC did provide an update yesterday, and that gave us some space, along with how fishers are performing, to give us the ability to take some action today. And that's great. But indications again are that while aspects of the Chinook run are larger than forecast. This run does not, to me, have any indications that it's, huge. We're going to continue to assess how things are going, and we're going to provide additional opportunity if we can, because, like I said, this is a conservation opportunity. I view fisheries, they are a consumptive use, but they're also a conservation opportunity through engagement with folks. Looking forward to 2025, when we get through the end of these fall fisheries, we'll assess where we wound up after the season, both for fall fisheries and all our fisheries, and we'll look and see what we think we could have done better. Fisheries are always an adaptive process, and then we'll think about how we're going to move forward. We'll continue to take input. That process never changes. We've modified buoy 10 from where we were in the past, and we'll probably continue to do that depending on public feedback from folks like you guys. And then in general, right, the work the program does is focused on minimizing the negative impacts from the hydro system and other anthropogenic things, and increasing the number of fish in the river by working with our co-managers and folks like you. This is an intense but rewarding career and process. I guess thanks. And with that, I will be happy to take questions from anyone but Les.
He's branded.
Can I go first?
Sure.
Les had his hand up first.
Tucker?
Hey, Tucker, I gotta, can you explain the large number of tules above Bonneville Dam? I understand that there's Spring Creek hatchery, but assuming Spring Creek gets their brood at a period of time and they close the gates, you've got a ton of tules swimming around up here. We're catching them at the Big White. We're catching them at the Klickitat. We're catching them at the Deschutes. Assuming these fish, nature is going to take its course. These fish are going to assumingly spawn somewhere. What's Washington and Oregon's position on that? And I guess I'll let you answer that.
Well, those fish are hatchery fish, most likely, right? Bonneville Pool Hatchery, BPHs. They're all destined for. I think they're all going to be heading back to Spring Creek. Whether they get their brood need or not, they should all be heading back there. So they'll surplus them out, I would suspect.
So you're not
And
concerned?
they shouldn't be. I don't expect them to be. Well, they shouldn't be spawning in the Deschutes or other places. I don't expect. If they are, that's going to be an issue down the road.
I mean, there's definitely thoughts that that's what's going on, is that they're going to be spawning in unintended places, and I just didn't know what the two states' position, assuming that they're going to spawn in the Deschutes, assuming they're going to spawn in the Klickitat, assuming they're going to spawn in the Hood, whatever other tributaries there are. And I understand.
No, we do spawning surveys in those places, and if they start to see a bunch of hatchery fish showing up on those spawning grounds, and then there will have to be actions taken to reduce that production. But I mean, those fish, right? I mean, there are still ongoing treaty fisheries, right? So a bunch of those fish will still hopefully get caught.
What you think there's any kind of a market for those tules for the tribes?
Well, I mean, they'll still catch them, right? I mean, they get some, they don't get as much for them, right? They'll get,
Right.
Low dollar value, right? 25 cents to 50 cents a pound, but they still sell. So,
Gotcha.
and I know that, right, in their most recent their most recent thing, their anticipated catch in their upcoming opener is 27, almost 28,000 fish, of which only 11,500 are expected to be brights. So they're definitely planning on catching a bunch of BPHs.
Okay. And then my second question, do you have the stats yet for buoy 10 as from your creel as to what percentage of retained Chinook were Thule's versus brights?
I don't have those stats yet, Les.
Okay, thanks, Tucker.
John Zell, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, Tucker, but my
Well, let's
first
keep
one,
it brief, John.
my first piggybacking on Les's conversation is, so where are the Thule's in the Columbia system? Where are they from and where are they headed to by kind of percentage? Because I just don't know that.
Well, there are different Thule stocks, right? I mean, there are lower Columbia River Chinook, right? Most of what you're thinking of as Thule's are lower Columbia, right? And they're a natural listed stock, right?
Below the Bonneville Dam, right?
Yes, below Bonneville Dam. And then there are lower river hatcheries, Thule's, which we use as a surrogate for those wild fish. And most of the fish we're talking about, and when we're talking about a limiter, those are the wild fish downstream of Bonneville Dam. And then there are also Thule stock, the Spring Creek fish that Les are talking about coming back upstream of Bonneville Dam.
So was because the season was shut down earlier last year because of Thule impacts, you don't have statistics yet on what those impacts are this year on that?
Well, the Thule impacts were not the limiter this year. The herbs were the limiter this year. Yeah.
Okay. My other question about that.
But we do have in our recent fact sheet a list out of the different impacts and where we're at on Chinook stocks.
Okay. So is this the first time in a long while that the PFMC meeting is such close to Portland?
It's been a few years, 3 or 4, I think.
So it moves around between Oregon and Washington, basically?
In California.
Oh, in California. Okay, that's good. Pat, I'm glad that meeting is so close to home, and we need to get a turnout there. We need to promote it for people to get there. Just my 2 cents, anyway.
I just took notes. Thanks, John.
So my other basic, stupid basic fisherman question, Tucker, when you started your presentation, do you think that most people don't understand how a fish swims downstream through migration, that they're swimming upstream and they're pushed downstream by the flow level, right? You think that's a basic function of how fish work, that most people don't understand or know?
I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a bunch of fish biologists actually don't know that. The juvenile salmon, I think a lot of people think they're swimming downstream, that they don't know that they're actually a passive particle that are just holding themselves basically and letting the flow push them down.
And that probably applies to not only the Columbia, but any other river on the West Coast, wouldn't you think?
It applies to juvenile salmon, like
Right.
everywhere, that they're juvenile salmon.
Absolutely. Juveniles everywhere. They face upstream, but they're pushed down by the flow. And the flow, I don't care if it's the Willamette, the Columbia, the Trask, wherever, it all affects that. And basic fishermen probably just don't know or understand that.
All right. So does anybody else have any more questions? I do have a trivia question to cap the evening off. All right. I'm going to put it in the chat box, but I'm going to read it. This is tonight's trivia question, and whoever answers it first and closest will receive a Hatchery and Wild, either your choice of a branded pen light or a long sleeve t-shirt. All right, so trivia question is, the Columbia River Basin once produced more salmon and steelhead than any river in the world. Before the 1840s, how many salmon and steelhead returned to the Columbia River? Type your message in the chat box or your answer. Tucker, do you know this?
I don't know. There are a lot of numbers that float around, so I'm interested to know what your number is.
And I will reveal my source if this is incorrect. Does that look correct to you, Tucker?
That's what I would say. Somewhere right in there.
Yeah. All right, we have two guesses. Les is in the ballpark, but not really, and John is not in the ballpark. Does anybody else want to give it a go? I'll give you 30 seconds.
Google's not that fast.
You're right. Les, do you want to refine your vote or your guess?
I'm going to say 2 to 4 million.
No.
Oh, okay.
All right. Since your original guess was 10 to 16 million, the answer that was provided is 16 million, and I private messaged Tucker, and he said that was in the ballpark. So we're going to go with that. And so, Les, do you want the T-shirt or the pen light?
I think I have one of your pen lights, so I'll take the T-shirt.
Okay. Will you? I'll get your size and address to Don New, who is provided the question and the answer and the trivia prize. So, as we wrap this up, just a couple things for people to remember. We have the drift boat raffle going on. You can buy tickets at any of the Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor stores. You can buy them online through our website. We also have the Edge photo contest. If you have a photo that is that you think is worthy of entering, go to our website and you can upload it there. You will each month we award an edge rod to a winner. Quick reminder that the Columbia River Gorge Banquet is September 28th. So if people are looking for a fun event, I know Les and his banquet planning committee is working real hard to pull that off, and things are looking good. So that's again September 28th, and then also we have the there you go. There's that's Les's basement, and those are all the prizes in there that that they've collected. Jim Kennedy, you got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Tucker. Sorry I wasn't able to get on the call earlier. We just want to thank you on behalf of the Communication Committee for doing this again. Les, did you have a GRC update?
I do have a real brief one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So once again, didn't know that we were putting you up against two candidates that are have some big argument or something going on tonight, Tucker, but just to remind everybody, there's a lot of replays. This will be on the website and YouTube tomorrow for replays, and we get pretty good traction on that after sometimes 6, 8, 10 times more viewers than actually participate. So let's go ahead and give that report.
Great.
Thanks, Pat, for running the show tonight. You did great, from what I heard.
Hey, Tucker, really appreciate it. I know you had a busy day today, so appreciate you taking the time to do this for us. From the GRC committee, I just got 2 items. The ODFW hatchery review process. Heath Hackala, our I guess biologist staff, has attended the various meetings, public meetings and webinars concerning this. He is included in the a small work group or a small group meeting that will be delve further into ODFW's hatchery system, the investments needed to main hatchery production. And he says the first meeting will be held next week, which he will be attending on behalf of CCA. Also, Governor Tina Kotek recently announced 5 appointments to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission. 4 were reappointments. So Commissioners Wall, Labhart, Spellbrink, and Hatfield Hyde were reappointed. And the new appointment is Dallas Hall DeFries, who is a rancher out of the Burns area. I believe it's a female, right? Is that correct, Tucker? Do you know? Or Pat?
Correct. It is. Yeah.
A female. She's a rancher out of the Burns area. Apparently some of the commissioners that kind of support fisheries believe that DeFries will be a valuable addition to the commission. So that's all we have from the Government Relations Committee.
Great. Thanks. All right, everybody. Again, thank you for attending. Thanks for your questions. And Tucker, really appreciate taking time out of your schedule and your evening to kind of explain and share your tonight's program. It was interesting, and I think some people learned that juvenile salmon don't actually swim downriver.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, everybody. Here we go. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.